Welcome back to the Encrypted Enigma. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join us as we explore the boundaries of reality. Tonight, I've got stories for you. Stories that will make you question whether what you see every day is truly real or if the world around you is nothing more than a glitch in the matrix. Do you ever get that feeling? The one where you can't quite place it, but something in your world is off. Like you're being watched by something not human?
Let me start with Jacob's story. Jacob was like anyone else, just another guy going about his daily life. He recently moved into a new apartment, a place with creaky floors and old pipes. But it wasn't the building that unnerved him, it was the mirror. This wasn't any ordinary mirror. It was old, with a slight tarnish around the edges, like it had seen too much. At first, Jacob shrugged off the unease. Everyone has those moments when you catch yourself in the mirror and think for a second, was that me? But then, one night, things escalated. Jacob was brushing his teeth, staring blankly into the mirror when his reflection did something terrifying. His reflection smiled, but he didn't. His heart stopped. He leaned in closer, confused, thinking he must be imagining it. But then the reflection moved again, waving, not in a friendly way. It was taunting him. He stumbled back, his toothbrush clattering to the floor. He bolted out of the bathroom and slammed the door shut, heart racing. The rest of the night, he couldn't sleep. Every creak in the apartment sent chills down his spine, but he didn't dare check the mirror again. The next morning, Jacob avoided the bathroom mirror entirely, brushing his teeth in the kitchen instead. But a week later, as he walked past the mirror to leave for work, he noticed something that made his stomach drop. His reflection was missing. He waved his hand in front of the glass, nothing. It was as if he was invisible. Then he felt it. That strange sensation of breath on the back of his neck. He turned around. But no one was there. And when he turned back to the mirror, his reflection had returned. Except this time, it wasn't him anymore. It was standing behind him. They never found Jacob after that. His apartment was completely empty. All that was left was the shattered mirror and one last message written in glass shards. It's not just a reflection anymore. Sometimes it's not just mirrors that glitch. Sometimes entire places shouldn't exist. This next story, well, it'll make you think twice about the places you visit. Lily was on a solo road trip, one of those find-yourself adventures. She'd been driving for hours and decided to take a detour off the highway to explore a small town she stumbled across. It was picturesque, almost too perfect. Cobblestone streets, charming old shops, and the friendliest people you've ever met. They smiled and waved at her like they had been waiting for her arrival. Charmed by the town's warmth, Lily decided to stay the night at a cozy inn. The room was perfect old-world charm, soft lighting, and a beautiful view of the quiet streets below. She fell asleep feeling content. The next morning, however, everything changed. When she walked outside, the town was gone. The cobblestone streets, the shops, the people, everything had vanished. She was standing in the middle of an empty field. Confused and panicked, she checked her GPS, trying to find her way back to the main road. But the town wasn't on any map. It was as if it had never existed. Lily drove for hours, her mind racing, trying to make sense of it. But as she glanced in the rearview mirror, there it was, the town, the people, waving at her from the distance, smiling. And then, in the reflection of the rearview mirror, she saw herself standing in the middle of the town, smiling back, except she wasn't driving anymore. Reality can be a fragile thing. It's not just places that disappear sometimes, it's people, like what happened to Alex. Alex was sorting through old photo albums one evening, flipping through childhood memories. He noticed something odd. In nearly every picture, there was a man in the background at first. Alex thought it was just a coincidence, maybe a stranger or someone he didn't recognize, but the more he looked, the stranger it got. The man didn't age. In photos that spanned over 20 years, the same figure was always there, watching from a distance, always dressed in dark clothes, always facing the camera, but never directly in focus. The chills creeping up Alex's spine were undeniable. Who was this man? As Alex continued flipping through the album, the man got closer in each picture. In the beginning, he was a distant figure at the edges of the frame, but by the last few pictures, the man was right next to Alex. The final image, Alex sitting on his couch in his own living room, with the man standing right behind him. Alex was so rattled, he threw the album across the room. That night, as he lay in bed, unable to sleep, He heard soft footsteps echoing through his house. He sat up, but the house was silent. Just as he was about to drift off again, a cold breath swept across his neck. He jumped up, ran to the window, and there standing just outside was the man from the photo staring at him through the glass. He didn't move, he just smiled. Now let's talk about the unexplained phenomenon of time loops. For this one, we'll look at Natalie's experience. Natalie had a routine wake up, drive to work, stop at her favorite coffee shop along the way. She'd been doing it for years without a hitch, but one rainy morning, something felt off. When she got to the coffee shop, the barista seemed different. The usual smiles and greetings were replaced with a blank stare, as if the barista didn't even recognize her. The clock on the wall showed the wrong time, it was running backwards. Natalie grabbed her coffee, shrugged it off, and drove to work. But as she turned the corner to her office building, her heart dropped. The coffee shop was right in front of her again. She was back where she had started. Confused, she kept driving, thinking she must have made a wrong turn. But no matter how many times she circled the block, she ended up right in front of the coffee shop. The people inside were now staring at her through the windows, their eyes following her every move. They didn't blink. Desperate, Natalie turned down an unfamiliar street, hoping to break free from whatever was happening. But the further she drove, the more distorted reality became. The building stretched and twisted, the road ahead spiraling like a vortex. And then, just as she thought she was free, everything snapped back to the coffee shop. Only this time, her own face was in the window, staring back at her with that same empty, lifeless expression. And finally, sometimes reality slips in the most mundane ways, like in the case of Dan. Dan worked in an office building, nothing out of the ordinary, but one day on his lunch break, he decided to take the elevator to a floor he had never been to before. As the doors opened, he was met with an empty hallway, stretching on far longer than the building should have allowed. The lights flickered and the air was thick with a strange static hum. Dan walked down the hallway, curious but uneasy. Every door he passed was locked, and the hallway seemed to stretch further and further, despite the building only having 6 floors. Finally, he reached a door at the very end. It wasn't labeled, and the door handle was ice cold. He opened it, and what he saw was impossible. It was his own office, the same desk, the same chair, the same paper scattered across the surface, but sitting in his chair was him. Dan's double looked up, smiled, and simply said, "You're not supposed to be here." The next thing Dan remembers is waking up in the elevator, the doors closing in front of him. But every day since then, whenever he passes a mirror or a window, he catches a glimpse of his reflection, smiling back at him even when he isn't.
So what do you think? Are these just stories? Or is there something more to the reality we think we know? If reality ever glitches for you, don't ignore it. The world isn't as stable as we like to believe, and sometimes things slip through. Thanks for watching tonight's episode of the Encrypted Enigma. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Wait, what is this? Why haven't you subscribed yet? You think this is a game? Hit that button right now. Oh, sorry about that. Must have been a glitch. Anyway, see you next time. If reality doesn't glitch again.